Excellent. We are live into the world. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or wherever you are living in the world or hearing or seeing. I'm very, very chuff silly today. It's taken me a little while to get my next guest on board on my Mindful Leadership podcast, where I'll be speaking to some really insightful global leaders from around the world. They're going to share their insights and their passion and their story of how they became what they became. And today, without further ado, I've got Gordon Tredgold here. Look, I'm going to give you a little bit of background, and like we've been speaking for the last God knows how long before this. Wonderful insights. He's on the top 30 global leaders. He's in Inc. magazine. He's written thousands of articles. He's written a book, which is behind me. But if you're listening in audio, the book is called Fast 4 Principles Every Business Needs to Achieve Success and Drive Results. So I printed this out. So I've wasted a lot of ink today on Gordon. So he's got some wonderful stuff to tell us today. So Gordon, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. As I say, I'm as giddy as a schoolgirl with Leeds United making it into the Premier League.
About time.
I actually moved out of England the year we got relegated. So I haven't lived in the UK for 16 years. Maybe it's time to go back. I don't know.
maybe you need to go live in Leeds for a bit. Like yourself, I've been living in Ireland for. My wife keeps correcting me this because I keep forgetting for 15 years. So I sort of resonate with you. I keep going back every now and again and seeing friends, family, and all of that sort of stuff. So Gordon, like we've been chatting beforehand, and I'm absolutely fascinated with everything that you've said. And I said, let's record. But you came up with some golden gems, and I know you got lots more. But a little bit of backstory about who you are and where you've come from. I know you come from Leeds, but a little bit more about your life and your life to date and how you got to be where you are now. And I know you're planning on a special move out of Belgium to the Spanish mainland.
Yeah, down by Valencia. Yeah, we're looking at moving there. We're always on the run. So, So my background is I'm born and bred in Leeds, Yorkshireman through and through for the good and the bad that brings. And in school I was very good at two things. I was very good at mathematics and good at rugby. So I played a lot of sport, and that was great because it gave me an understanding of the difference between a collection of individuals and a team, and the power that teamwork could bring. And with the mathematics, I went on to university and studied mathematics, and that was great for problem solving. So that good mix of understanding how we can benefit through great teams, and with the problem solving, being able to find solutions that great teams could implement, and that got me. So I like a challenge. I was a front row forward. I played hooker, so always on the front line, and that got me when I started my career in IT to be constantly looking for opportunities to progress faster than the standard. You're a programmer for a year, then a senior programmer, and then a designer and leader. I wanted to fast track myself, so I volunteered for all of the most complicated projects or projects that were failing, volunteering to try and turn them around. And there's two reasons for that. One is because if it fails, you can just shrug your shoulders and say, yeah, we all knew that was going to fail, so there's no downside to it. Or if you manage to turn it around, you stand out because everybody thought it was going to fail, and now you saved it. And I built a reputation as a turnaround expert through that knowledge of problem solving, understanding how things work, why they fail, and how to bring people together, get them mobilized and motivated. And that just catapulted my career, and I went from, working for companies like British Shoe Corporation to working for London Electricity, and then moving abroad and leading $50 million projects, $100 million projects, and running departments of 1,000 staff and 250 people, and implementing. And there was a period where I went from delivering complex projects to actually running and driving organizations. So driving change, but change that was organizational change and culture, which is different from projects, because a lot of time with the IT project, sometimes technology doesn't tend to fail. It's the people implementing it. So it's generally a people issue that you need to address, but there's a big technology aspect to it as well. You've got to get that balance right. But when you're doing organizational changes, culture changes, it's 100% people. And I started volunteering for things like that. And as I say, I ended up running $250 million departments, leading teams of 1,000 people, running initiatives that help people improve performance by 50 to 500%. I helped them cut budgets by 20 million. I think that's part of my Yorkshire heritage. One of my favorite comedians, Ken Dodd, he said, the first words a Yorkshireman says are how much. So I'm always looking at price. Why are we paying that? What are we getting for that? And if we're not getting value for money, stop doing it.
Yeah.
And those were great things that were appreciated by companies. And then about 6 years ago, what I realized is that as a leader, one of the benefits we get is the bigger the team we have, the more impact we can have. And leading a team of 1,000 people, I was asking myself, what's next? And for me, that logical step was to actually start moving into the world of leadership and actually coaching, training leaders, writing books on that, so that I could help more people become leaders and have a bigger impact on things. So that's pretty much the story. And within that, I have experienced some failures. It wasn't all sunny days.
Yeah, because not everything is perfect, and not everything exists now. But what I was thinking of is you've actually dipped your toe in lots of different areas of business. Not only your leadership, but you've also helped in the IT area, which also builds up knowledge of the marketing area, but also builds up the knowledge of sales and then leadership and actually developing others and to actually make an impact, which makes you more sort of credible than others.
Yeah. I must admit that there are times when I get approached by people wanting to coach me on leadership, and I'm always like, okay, let me just see what. And I ask them, what are you going to teach me, and what's the biggest team you've led? And they come back and they'll say, oh, I've led teams of 25. Yeah, I had 25 direct reports in my last full-time job. So thanks, but no thanks. And one of the other things that you talked about, I would say I know nothing about sales. I couldn't sell blood to a man bleeding to death at my feet. But actually, what I'm not great at is asking for money. I'm very, very good at selling, because leadership is sales. It's about selling ideas. It's about selling solutions. It's about engaging and enrolling people and getting them to come on the journey with you.
It is. It's absolutely that. And regardless of what type of job you're in, if you're giving an idea to someone else, then that's sales. What you are doing is you're influencing and impacting someone else to actually think the same way as you.
Leadership is influence, and influence is leadership.
So what goes on in your mind? I want to understand and dig deep into your head. So what made you do what you do? And so what are the initial thoughts and thought patterns that you'd say to yourself? Because I'm intrigued by that.
What do you mean? Are you asking me what started me down that path?
Yeah, what's really started you? What made you think? What anchored you into that state, or that trigger that went, hang on, I'm good at this?
So this is a story I tell quite often, but it's because it's true. When I was 10, I played rugby for a team who were bang average. We finished middle of the league. I don't think we beat a team above us in the league.
Yeah.
And we we played in the cup competition, and we were drawn against all of the teams that were below us, and we made it through to the final. And in the final, we played the team that had won the league easily and had beaten us. I think it was 35-0 and 15-0 in the two games that we played against them. And our coach, so we were ecstatic. Yeah, we made the final. Who are we playing? And the ears dropped, and he said, no, don't worry about it. They've only played us in the league, and in the league we're average. In the cup, we're unbeaten. We are a completely different side. We are the equal of them, and this is going to come as a surprise to them because they've never seen that. They've only got one approach, which is to be the team that's always winning, and we've seen that, and we are going to come out and we are going to surprise them with our unbeaten selves. And it gave us all, it devised some strategies and techniques and gave us all individual plans, and we went out there and we ended up winning that game 6-3. And when I got a little bit older and I looked back on it, I thought, were we a better team than the team we'd played? No. They were top of the league. They'd thrashed us twice. We were an average team, but with great leadership, we had become a force that could beat them. And it comes back to the Alexander the Great quote of, I'd rather face an army of lions led by a sheep than an army of sheep led by a lion. And I thought, I want to be that lion. I want to be the lion that turns the other sheep into lions, that gives people belief, that helps us achieve above and beyond what we think we are capable of. And more importantly, what other people think we're capable of. And because I thought, if I could do that, I'll never be out of work.
Isn't that building that element of trust with people, like that they believe in you, and there's also a mutual respect back?
Well, yes, but more importantly, he's getting them to believe in themselves. When we played in that cup game, I believe the coach came to me and he said, Gordon, I played prop forward. I was 5'6" and I was the second biggest in the team. A year later, I was 5'6" and I was the smallest in the team. I never grew another inch other than sideways. And he said to me, you're not a creative player, you're a destructive player. And we will win the game if you stand opposite their best player and every time he gets the ball, you knock 6 bells out of him. He said, you don't have to do anything else. If you do that, we will win and you will be the man of the match. And I'm 10 years old. If you'd have told me I could have flown, I would have probably believed it, but I bought into it. And we, as a team, we had 13 people who believed in the coach and we believed in ourselves. And when you get the team believing in themselves, they can achieve unbelievable things. Because if they don't believe in yourself, if we don't believe in ourselves, they score, we go, oh, we knew that was going to happen. Our heads drop. If we believe and they score, we're like, why did that happen? What did we need? What do we need to do to fix that? How are we going to get back into it? We're in solution mode. We're on the front foot as opposed to being on the back foot, getting ready to resign. We knew we were going to lose and then quit. So it's about, yes, it requires them to have trust in me in order to create the trust in themselves.
Yeah, I agree. That's really powerful what you just said, and that totally resonates with me. And helping others to engage and impact. And before this, we actually just spoke about Leeds football.
Yeah, that's my wife giving my advice.
Oh.
Tell me about this.
He's on your shoulder. He's talking to you. So, we spoke about Leeds and how they've just stepped
and
up.
Marcelo Bielsa, all hail.
Yes. And it's exactly what you said, isn't it? Exactly what you've just led to suggest is how they've gone up from the last 13 years or more than that. And now they've gone up
years.
Yes, you're a little bit more precise than I am. I'm just a bit flippant with Leeds. Exactly what you've said. They've built up that element of trust. So looking at that, that's a really good life lesson in exactly what he's done to the players.
Yeah, absolutely. And he changed the culture within 6 weeks. And now that's probably faster than you can do it in an organization, because with a team, you've got a squad of 22, 25 players. So you don't have many people to impact. And, there's the culture of the, I call it the, culture adoption profile. It's the bell curve. It's very similar to the diffusion of innovation. And what you have to do is you have to get between 18 to 20% of the people to buy into what you're doing. And if they do that, that's the tipping point that gets everybody else involved. The people at the far end, the reluctant followers, or the laggards, you've just got to cut them adrift and let them go. And you focus on finding the people that are already doing what you want to do, those who want to do it but don't know how, and those that would do it if they were told to do it and they were shown to do it. And if you do that, you can really accelerate culture change and performance improvements. So within a football team, you're talking about 18 to 20% of a 20-man squad. That's 6 people. If you're running an organization of 1,000 people, now you're talking about 200 people that you've got to change. So that will take a little bit longer, because you've got to identify these people, give them the opportunity, give some the permission, give some training, others encouragement. But if you do that right, it's just like wildfire, absolute wildfire.
I suppose good trades really well, doesn't it? So if people like to be trusted in, but they also like to be invested in, so they feel like you're not what's the terminology? You're all over them and you're checking everything that they do and all that.
Fundamentally, you're making them feel valued and important. I mean, yes, we have to invest in them, but why do we invest? Because it makes them feel valued. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of our, once we've got over the food, shelter, and heating, it's about a feeling of belonging and self-esteem. So once we start feeding into that, then that's payday. And that's why leadership is not about us. It is about me as a leader in being trustworthy. But actually what we're doing is we're trying to leverage that to get them to believe in themselves. If they only believe in me, then they'll follow me, but they'll never go past me. And what we want is we want our teams to go past us. We want them to exceed what we could do, because but otherwise we become a limitation.
Agree.
So we've got to empower them and release them and let them go and achieve their absolute maximum potential. So it's all about the team. It's all about building trust in the group, trust in the individuals, faith in their ability to be successful. And one of the things about leads is that, and I'm not 21. I remember back to the days of Fergie, and before Fergie, Liverpool, when Liverpool were the dominant team. All of those dominant teams, the number of games that they would win scoring a goal in the 85th to 90th minute, because they believe.
Absolutely.
They don't accept if they're 2-0 down, they don't know why that is. They don't believe this is right, and they continue to try and fix it. So they'll keep working to the end and beyond in order to get the results. And that's the kind of culture that we want to foster in our teams and in our organizations. And as I say, to do that, they have to have trust in each other and themselves that they will find a solution down the way.
I think it is that trust and belief, and it is how people can empower you to move forward and just say, look, sometimes we all make mistakes, and as long as you learn from that mistake, the way I look at it, there's no such thing as failure, but only feedback. So the feedback you have is for you to just go, okay, well, don't do that again. That's fine, but learn from it and excel forward. And I think that's a really good process to have.
Yeah, so, and one piece that I add to that is that learn from other people's failure. I don't need to jump out of a plane without a parachute to realize that that's a bad thing to do. That's the kind of thing you want to learn from somebody else, not firsthand. So yeah, yes, learn from your own, but also learn from other people's failures, and that's what FAST was about. It was about what are the fundamental reasons why we fail, and why things fail, and what we could do to prevent them. So the known causes of failure, let's try and avoid them, and for the unknown causes which trip us up, learn from it, adapt, and move forward. And to do that, we again, it comes back to trust. People need to trust that if they make a mistake, they're not going to get shot, because if they make a mistake and get shot, then
they're not going to do it again.
They're not going to take the risk.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was a great example of what happens to this in rugby probably about 15 years ago. New Zealand went on a record-breaking series of winning games, and what they did was they played error-free rugby. They kept the errors to an absolute minimum, and what they did was they practiced everything to perfection. And England adopted, we want to play this error-free football. So what they did was they stopped taking risks, because if you don't take a risk, you won't make a mistake, so there's no errors. But there's a huge difference between risk-free and high-risk, error-free rugby. And you could see that in the results. England, they won more games, but it was dull, it was uninteresting. And when it was close, they might not find a way to win. So we want our teams to take risks. We want them to take chances. And for them to do that, they have to be comfortable that if it doesn't quite work, we're not going to shoot them. Otherwise, in order to reduce the errors, they'll reduce the risk. And when you reduce risk, that's when you stop growth and the achievement of exceptional results.
So how would you, if you went into a company tomorrow or the next day or whenever, and they're a big company and they got a few challenges along the way, what was the first thing that you would do for them?
So I know this sounds like I'm pitching the book, but I'm not. For me, the first thing I always do is that, there's 4 reasons why we fail, and these are the components of my book, FAST. It's a lack of focus. People don't know what success looks like. There isn't a clear picture of it, or it hasn't been communicated, and people are focusing on the wrong thing. And when you focus on the wrong thing, it doesn't matter how successful you are at the wrong thing, you're going to fail. Coming back to football, people say, possession football. But if you have, I think the statistic is something like the team that has the most possession wins 60% of the games.
Yeah.
And I'm a mathematician. A more interesting statistic and relevant is the team that scores the most goals wins 100% of the games. So what should we be focused on? Scoring more goals or on possession? Possession could be part of it, but it cannot be our focus, because we're now focused on the wrong thing. So we have to make sure we're focused on the right things. We're thinking about outcomes. It's then about accountability. Have we set clear expectations? Have we communicated to people? Have I told you that you're marking their centre forward? Because if I haven't, and he scores, we're looking at each other going, I thought he was yours. I thought he was yours. So we have to have that clear assignment of roles and responsibilities, a clear setting of expectations. And then we have to understand how to hold people accountable. And a lack of accountability is another big reason why things fail. And then the last 2 is a lack of simplicity. We overcomplicate things. And when we overcomplicate it, complexity kills execution. That's a phrase from Tony Robbins. So if we overcomplicate it, we've killed execution. How does that help us? And then the last part is transparency.
I'm looking at that because I've got that on my notes here. Actually, I'm looking at your 4, which I borrowed from somewhere else just to have a look. You got 20 quick tips to get you started, and I've read them all, and they're absolutely phenomenal. So, pick one or two out of transparency.
So I just want to answer your question, and I'll come back to that. So transparency is about understanding what's involved, and there's two aspects to it. What's involved. So if we want to have a baby, we need to know it takes 9 months. If you commit to 6, you're going to fail. So you need to know, a football game, you need to know that you need to be in front after when the final whistle blows, not 2-0 up after 80 minutes or 1-0 up after 30. Those are interesting things, but we need to know what it is. And then we need to have accuracy and performance. So when I go into a company, the first thing I will do is I will look and ask myself, how do they score in each of those areas? Do they have a clear focus? Do they have clear goals that are understood? Do I see accountability? Do I see feedback mechanisms? Do I see how they're holding accountable? If I ask people, so how is this going to be achieved? And if people say to me, I know that they don't have a simple approach, which is going to impact performance. And then if I ask them, can you show me where we are today in terms of performance, and they can't, then I know they're lacking that. And whichever of those that they score the worst in, that would be the area that I would pick. So if it was transparency, I would then want to look and see what's the reporting mechanisms that you have that you're showing me how you're progressing. Do you have performance reports that measure against output? Too often we create plans. This is my diet plan. I have a salad for lunch, a salad for breakfast, a salad for dinner. If you ask me how I'm doing against that plan, and I tell you I've done all of that, you don't know whether I'm any thinner or not. You need me to get on the scales.
Absolutely.
So stop measuring, have the tasks been done? Measure, are we getting, if my weight's gone down by 2 kilos in a week, then do you really care whether I had a salad for every meal? Probably not, because we're getting the results. If my weight's gone up by 2 kilos, you're going to be asking me, have you been, in addition to the salads, what else have you been eating? So we need that visibility into performance and that understanding. And once we have that transparency, then we can hold people accountable. If you don't have transparency into performance, what are you holding them accountable for?
Mm-hmm. I totally and utterly agree. And I was thinking of a million questions then, but carried on. I've forgotten them all, but that's fine.
Well, the thing I love most about transparency, and I'm really sorry for anybody who's not a sports fan or a football fan, but what I love about transparency is if you have accurate performance measurement, when it gets to the end of the season, the bottom 3 teams can complain about how unlucky they've been, but they're getting relegated. Because the table doesn't lie. We've had accurate performance measures. We know we know how we're measuring performance, and we've had accurate measures, and we've printed the league table every single week. And the team that are in the bottom, if you've been in the bottom 3 all season, you deserve to go down. If a team's gone from 10th to just slipped in, we can ask, well, what happened? What can we do to turn it? Do we need to do going forward? But it makes a lot of the leadership, a lot of those difficult discussions easier, because if you come in and you say to me, oh, I'm doing great, and I go, sorry, you're in the bottom 3, you're 5 points adrift. We're not arguing about, are you performing well or not? It's clear that you're not. Now we can move the conversation to, and what do we need to do about it? How can I help you get out of it?
The question I was going to ask, I actually really love the sort of analogy, the metaphor that you're saying with regards to sports and relaying it over to business, because there is a relationship there, and it does work. And I've spoken to sort of sports people before, and they've gone into leadership roles, and they've had the discipline behind it and everything else. How do you see I'm drifting off that, because I've seen it before, that these companies out there, and they have all these tech here, but they communicate by WhatsApp or whatever, and they communicate with the person that's sitting to the table next to them, but they're chatting online. And for me, I find that just frustrating, because the communication process is almost lost rather than in tech speak. if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and it's a lack of focus.
Yeah.
It's like now. It was like earlier when my wife was telling me, "Oh, mention this, mention this." I'm trying to look over. I'm disengaging from the conversation,
Yeah.
and engagement is massively key. So we've got to try to make sure that and in order for people to be engaged, they need to know what's the goal, what's the objective, what does success look like, so they can then contribute towards that. And the same with the accountability. What is my role in that? But we, as leaders, we've got to make sure that engagement channel is completely free. And if people, if you're running a meeting and people are on chat about something else, close it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ask them, what is that pertinent to what we're doing? Because it could be that somebody's saying, "Oh, I've just messaged Bob to say, I've just seen the status report and I've realized that, we're out of stock on chemical A, go and order some now." Or I'm just texting somebody to say, "Oh, by the way, Leeds have just bought a new centre forward. What do you think of that?" And I've now disengaged, and we've got to keep people engaged. And again, that part of that comes back to the leader. When you're running a meeting, if people are constantly on chat, you have to ask yourself, why is that? Is that because this is a boring, irrelevant meeting?
Yeah.
And if it is, let them go. Let them go do something else. Create clear agendas. Be structured about what you're going to do. And if if it doesn't add value to them or to what we're trying to do, let them go. And I see I worked on Brexit for the British government, and
good luck on that.
I was on a 1 hour daily stand-up call with 45 people on it. So that was one person's worth of effort per day on a call, which I don't think it added any value.
Yeah.
So at the end of the week, we've lost 5 weeks of productive effort, sat on a call, listening to people talk about nothing.
Yeah. Political talk.
And then the leaders complain that they're not performing. Well, yeah, you've just had 45 people on a call where the output was zip. That's your fault. So be clear about what it is we're trying to get them to do.
Yeah, I totally agree on that, and that's completely understandable. The thing I was going to ask you actually, you said along the way, whether it's personally or professionally, how do you make people understand that to grow on failure? What do you do to that? Because we all know that's hugely important. What do you say, and how do you suggest that? How you frame that?
What do you think went wrong? And what do you think we can do next time to do it better? It's simple questions like that. There's a phrase I like that was coined by a good friend of mine. Oh, that's where I heard it from. And that's from Nigel Risner, one of the top communication experts in the world, I would say. And he says, don't give feedback, give feed forward. Because feedback is telling you where you went wrong. Feed forward is about telling you how to do it better next time. And it's a complete mindset change. If I tell you, oh, by the way, I've got some feedback for you that I'm going to share, you're going to go, oh my God, what's he going to tell me? And you go into defensive, where it's like, you know what? I've got a great idea that I think can make this better.
Yeah.
You're going to be open to feed forward, close to feedback, until you find out of, actually, it was brilliant. You did a great job. Now I'm relieved. So be always thinking about feed forward. It changes the dynamic of the conversation.
It does.
And it changes the relationship. Feed forward builds trust. Feedback kills it.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, when we're giving feedback, there's only 2 types of feedback: praise or support on how to do it better next time.
Yeah.
Anything else is punishment.
Yep, agree.
Anything else is punishment. And I've heard people say, yeah, but what was if they need to know they got it wrong? Well, they know they got it wrong because there was a clearly defined outcome that wasn't achieved. Ergo, it failed. We don't need to go and dwell on that. We need to be talking about good job, well done, or okay, what we need to do next time is we need to be focused on this, 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 and this. That's leadership.
Yeah,
That's about moving. That's about moving people. Leadership is motion towards, not motion away from.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I often talk about, I created this very simple diagram. I call it my performance happiness curve. I created this performance happiness quadrant diagram of happy, unhappy.
Oh, I've
Sorry,
seen that.
happy, unhappy, underperforming, overperforming. And a lot of people are in the happy, underperforming group.
Yeah, yeah.
And we want to get them into the happy, overperforming group. And the only way we can do that is to get them to be, you can't move straight across, because if you're happy, why would you change?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we have to get them unhappy with where they are. And we can do that by me saying to you, you're fat, you need to lose some weight. But when I do that, you actually become unhappy, but you become unhappy with me, because I'm the asshole that's just told you you're not doing a great job. And now it's impossible for me to lead you because you're unhappy with me. Whereas if I come and say to you, you know what, I've got this great idea, there's this great new program that I think would be perfect for you. It would help you get into the shape of your life. And it's only going to take 15 minutes a day and you won't believe it. Come on, let's give it a go. Now, I want you to become unhappy with the where I am in that I could be better somewhere else. So you become unhappy with where you are rather than unhappy with the person giving the message. And a lot of people, they just say, oh yeah, they just need to be unhappy and they'll move. But if they're unhappy with you, you can't lead them. And we see this in football all the time. Or people no longer work for a manager because they've just been critical. Jose Mourinho is a great example of a manager who gets people into the unhappy underachiever bucket and they're unhappy with him. And the only way for them to move forward is to get rid of him because he can no longer lead them.
I think that's happened with Manchester United since Fergie's left, hasn't it?
Yeah,
All the consecutive managers just haven't built up that respect, that trust, that mutual.
And what's interesting is, Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola have done that. They've moved people into that happy overachiever role, and they've done it through motivation. But the two of them are ruthless. If you're not up to it, they'll cut you. But it's the way things are done. And I've always tried to be that way. And, throughout my entire career, I swear this is true. I've only ever fired 2 people in my life. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, you know what, I don't think I'm good enough for this. Or, you know what, I'm struggling. Do you have something else I could go and do? And that's when you've got that, the transparency, that fair reflection of performance. When people can see themselves down at the bottom, and no matter how much support you give them, they're not getting any better, they will volunteer to either leave or do something else. But we create that by being supportive, feed forward. What do you need from me? How can I make you successful? And one of the things I talk about in the accountability, we cannot make people accountable. We can try and hold them accountable by having follow-up sessions. Where are we on this? How are we doing? What's the result? Blah, blah, blah. But we can't make them accountable. I can make you responsible and say, this is your job. But accountability is internal. We have to take accountability, take ownership. And as leaders, we can influence that. And the easiest way to influence that is to ask people, do you have everything you need in order to be successful? And when people say yes, mentally, they just said, I've got everything I need.
Yeah.
I'm empowered now. I can take ownership. Great. And when I talk about that, a lot of the leaders say, oh, I don't want to ask that question. Why not? Well, what happens if they say no? Do your job and give them what they need. Because if you're a leader that's telling people, I need you to do this job, oh, and by the way, I'm not going to give you everything you need in order to be successful, when they fail, that's your fault and not theirs. So it's a simple question. It's ridiculously powerful because it builds trust and it allows us to put people, to set them up for success. And when we set people up for success, my experience is people will take it.
I think there's a thing in coaching, I was going to say, is
say that again.
There's a thing in coaching which is it's a transference of almost like energy between one person and another. As soon as I say something, I've given it to you.
Yes.
So it's that sort of thing, but it's also the internal dialogue that you're giving them as well. So if you're giving them support, again, I'm going to do a cliched: if you think you can, or if you think you can't, then you're right. But it is so true.
Yeah.
But that communication back into your head that's been given to someone else, it's power.
The other thing as well, and I am a confrontational person. As I say, I played rugby in the front row. You have to be confrontational. It draws confrontational people, but I don't really love it, and I don't really love difficult conversations. But when you ask somebody, do you have everything you need to be successful? And they say, absolutely. When they fail, you can ask them, so what happened?
Yeah.
Because you had everything. And then it just goes quiet. And you don't have to be aggressive or anything. You just say, you had everything. What happened? And sometimes they'll say, I couldn't be bothered, in which case, thanks, you're fired. Yeah. Or something will come out, I had a personal problem, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, next time, when you've got everything you need, if that ever changes, come to me and let me know. I used to tell my teams all the time, I am the nicest person in the world, except if you have everything you need to do and that to be successful, and that changes, and if you don't let me know at a point by which I could help you, you're stopping me from doing my job. And if you come and tell me, oh, by the way, I'm failing, and had I told you this 3 days ago, you could have made me successful, I will go batshit crazy. I'm sorry, but I as nice as I am, I reserve the right to go batshit crazy.
There's only so much I can take.
You stopped me from making you successful. You're stopping me from doing my job. So, and I'll tell people that up front, because I want you to come to me and say, I need help. Because servant leadership, I'm here to help. I'm here to clear the roadblocks.
The question I was going to ask, because it's always intriguing, is how do you see the world? Meaning in the internal landscape, do you visualize things? Do you make a map of? I know you're quite analytical and mathematical. How do you? I just want to understand how you see things inside, and how you can getting towards a solution or whatever, from A to B to Z, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it might be, that mathematical thing that's going on inside your head.
So one of the things I tell people is that I'm phenomenal at thinking on my feet, and I very, very rarely get stumped.
Yeah.
You are the first. That's a great question. I think I'm visual. I draw pictures. You will always find me stood next to a whiteboard, and it might be writing numbers down or drawing pictures or something. So I think I must be visual, but I want. And that could be that I want to create the image of success, but I might do that with words or with pictures. So one of the stories I talk a lot about, and I've lost count of the number of times I've told this story, is that when I decided to run my first marathon at the age of 52, I did a lot of research into it, because I like to learn and study. I am analytical. I am a nerd. I know that, but I tend to do it in isolation so people don't spot that.
But they did when you're running.
Yeah, and then what I like to do is I like to simplify it. I like to process all of. I love the data, but I love information more. For me, my skill is the transformation of data into information that people can use. And I told my two best friends, I'm going to run a marathon. at the age of 52, and they went, whoa, slow down there.
Easy. Yeah.
Easy, Trigger, easy. You're too fat, you're too old, you're too unfit. And I said, well, that's interesting because Farouja Singh, he ran the London Marathon at 100 years of age.
Yeah.
So I ain't too old. And they went,
age.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're telling me that I'm less fit than a 100-year-old guy, then shoot me now. Just shoot me now. Yeah. And I said, and I've researched and I've got a plan. And they said, well, all right, what's your plan? I said, well, I run 15 minutes a day for a week. I take Saturday off, and on Sunday I run for 20 minutes. And they said, yeah, anybody can run for 15 minutes a day. And if you do that 5 days in a week, take the Saturday off, you'll do 20 minutes on Sunday. I went, brilliant. The next week I run 20 minutes a day. I take Saturday off. I run 25 on Sunday. The following week I run 25 minutes a day, take Saturday off, and run 30 on Sunday. And they said, so you're just going to run 5 minutes more every week? And I said, yep. And after 26 weeks, I'll be able to run for 4.5 hours, because it's about a 10% increase. And once you run in 2 hours, it's a 10-minute increase. And when you run in 4, it's a 50 minutes. So it scales up pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
And they looked at me and they said, we'll do it with you, because they could see in their mind how we were going to go from fatties to finishing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was that visual image. And as I say, I did that with words, and sometimes I'll do it with pictures, but I'm always trying to help people visualize and see how we get from where we are to where we're going. And it's massively powerful. I've helped people. I coached a woman to write a book I had a 2-hour coaching session with her, and after 90 minutes, she said, I need to go. And I was like, is there a problem? She said, no, I just know enough, and I'm going to go and write it. Because she'd written around 12,000 words of a book that she was writing. Mm-hmm. And I just followed the fast approach. I said, okay, what does how many words in your book? She said, I don't know. I said, well, how will you know whether you're finished? She said, I went, okay, so this is a book that's 40,000 words. This is 60,000. This is 25,000. And she said, I want to do 40,000. I went, great. And you said you'd done 12. You're nearly 30% there. She was like, wow. And then I said to her, what's the structure of your book? She said, well, it's about winning at life, and there's 8 things I need to do. I said, so how many chapters? She said, I don't know. I said, well, how about introduction, a chapter for each topic, and then a conclusion? So that's 10 chapters, 4,000 words a chapter. You can write 500 words in half an hour. So you could write a chapter in around 6 or 7 days. And if you go and do that, you could probably write 1,000 words a day is not that much. So every 4 days you can bang a chapter out, and in 40 days the book will be done. And she was like, but what about all the spell checking and editing? I went, no, you're the author. Roles and responsibilities. You're the author. We get an editor to do that. And she was like, so I don't have to do that? I was like, no. And she was like, great. And off she went. Because she had all of the content inside her. She just didn't know she didn't know what success looked like. And
I was going to say, you chunked it right down into sizable chunks, which is easy to digest and go, well, you're not overwhelmed with too much information.
Correct. It gets them out of overwhelm. She could see step by step. And I mentioned this with the marathon of, I've simplified it, but I haven't made it easy, because it's still 26 miles.
Yeah.
But now the difference is, and I experienced this, when you believe it, you can run 26,000 miles. Sorry, 26 miles, not 26,000.
That's a little bit too extreme.
Yeah, I need to do a little bit more training and lose a little bit more weight. But 12 months before I started the marathon, I was asked to do a 10K, and I went, I can't. And I failed to run a 10K because I couldn't see how I was going to do it. I hadn't run for years, but and I had the right motivation. I wanted to raise money for charity the second time, so I had the internal drive to do it, which made me look for I want to do this. There is a solution. People fatter than me, older than me are doing it. I'll find examples and role models. But before, when I didn't really want to do it and I couldn't see how to do it, I couldn't run 10 kilometers. And yet a year later, I ran 42. My ability hadn't changed. It was my belief and my belief in the plan that I could visualize. Okay, yeah, this is how I'm going to get to do it. And we've got to break things down. It's like, we were talking about before. I've written 1,500 leadership articles, and people say to me, "Oh my God, that's amazing! How did you do that?" One a day for 1,500 days.
Yeah.
Now 1,500 in a day. Crazy. One a day.
I was going to say, actually, it's I've done a lot of study on habits and habit building. So exactly what you said on breaking it down, on doing it on a daily basis, but then increasing it on a week-to-week basis and building that habit, but also building that strength. But what you've done is actually build a strategy behind that, which enforces the habit completely. Because just saying that's my goal.
Success is a drug.
It is. I totally understand that.
And the other thing I say as well is that persistence is a talent multiplier. So, I went from complete unknown to one of the top 100 leadership experts in the world by writing an article a day. Once I did that for a year, and I'd written 300 articles, and I built a following, and I increased the following, by about 50 people a day. But at the end of the year, I had like 50,000 people following me, and I'd written 300 articles, and that slow accumulation of content, put me into a position where people went, "Oh, this guy must know what he's talking about. He's produced a ton of content, and he's got a lot of people listening to him." And when I've spoken at a lot of influencer meetings and blogger groups, and people ask me, "So how did you do this?" And I say, it's just day by day. That persistence is a talent multiplier. Am I a better writer now than I was at the start? Absolutely, because I've written 1,500 articles. Every time spell checker underlines a word, after it's underlined it 15 times, you start to go, "Oh yeah, I've spelt that wrong," or you start to learn and understand. And there's a great video by a great YouTube video by Derek Sievers. I don't know if you know that one. It's about persistence, and persistence is a talent multiplier. And what they did was they had two groups. They did a test with pottery students, and they split the class in half. And they said to the first half, "You have to make one truly amazing pot, and you are going to be judged on the quality of the pot you make." And they said to the second group, "We're not interested in quality. We're purely interested in quantity. You make 20 pots, you'll get double the mark as if you made 10 pots. You make 40 pots, and at the end of the semester, which group had made the better pots?" The group that was focused on quantity, because they refined every time they did one, they refined their technique. We were talking about learn from your mistakes. So you learn, you move, you learn, you move, you learn, you move. So persistence is a talent multiplier. So just go out there and be persistent. My English teacher told me I couldn't write. I would never do anything in the world of writing, and my book Fast was a finalist in Management Book of the Year.
Absolutely.
Am I a great writer? No, I'm not. But I am persistent and consistent, and simple, clear ideas. I used to. This is true. I refused to write because, as an Englishman, for me, a writer is Dickens, Chaucer, or Shakespeare. And I thought, I can't write like them. And then it occurred to me, I actually don't like reading those because they're too complicated. So I would be the antithesis of those. And I would just go down to the Janet and John approach to, my leadership books would be suitable for the under sevens. And I thought, I can write at that level. Simplicity, yeah. And and I want the reader to take away the lesson and to go and implement it. I don't want them to read my version of Hamlet and go, wow, that guy's a genius. No clue what he's saying, but he's an absolute genius.
Approach, but you just want it just to that, and that's how you do it, and take it away.
Leadership is about empowering people. And I don't empower you by getting you impressed with how smart I am. I empower you by giving you instructions that you think, oh, I can do this. I know what to do, and I can do it. So it's an interesting dichotomy to move down that simplicity, especially as a mathematician, where I love the detail and everything. But I've really moved down that simplicity and simple, clear communication, simple charts, simple presentation. The more people understand, the more people can execute. Simplicity. It's crazy powerful.
I've got just a question, because we've been chatting for ages, which is awesome. I could actually say, and with a shadow of doubt, I could actually speak to you all day. We could be on here for 3 hours and still be coming up with some wonderful things. But just to really sort of challenge your head for a second, is I watched the TV program the other day on Netflix, and can't remember who was in it, but it was really good. And it was a movie, and what they would do, there was a cop in there, and he was chasing down these criminals. And what they had were these special tablets. And these tablets...
Oh, I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, you did see it. So you know the question.
Power, I think it was called. Yeah, the Power it was called, I think.
So, yeah, they go like that, and they got 5 minutes, and it turns them... Each person has their own individual power depending on their DNA, and they swallow it, and all of a sudden I'm superhuman. I can fly, I can run through walls, and whatever else. What is your superpower, and how would you use it in 5 minutes?
I would want to. So I believe I have the ability to help people see how to be successful, and I would love to amp that up. And have 5 minutes, that I could just spend 30 seconds with people and they go, oh, wow, yeah, I can do that. So let them see in them what I see and the capability that they have, so that they can now, move forward with that belief and confidence.
So what's your real answer?
I'd want to be a professional footballer, and I would want Marco Bielsa to bring me on with 5 minutes to go and win the game for Leeds. And just tell me it doesn't go into injury time, and I fall over and die with a minute of the game left.
Oh, that's wonderful. It's been really, really very special today, and I've really loved every moment of it. And again, we could speak all day, but thank you so much for your time. And I always think, and I always say, if someone that's watching this or listening to this, if they can take one thing out of it, or several things out of it, but one thing out that can help them and excel them to move forward in their lives, I think we've both done a wonderful job, and we thank you so much for that.
Thank you. My pleasure.